brother. What's up? This is a groovy party, man. Yeah, I brother, dig it. Solid. Right on.
Thank you for joining us from wherever you might be. My name is Nicolai Garcia. I've been into poetry since I was 13 years old, but I didn't get serious into my work till sometime around 2017 when I discovered DSTL Arts, which is the organization that is bringing us here together today. Since that time, I've done a lot of really cool things in the literary world. I became an assistant editor for a literary journal. I host an open mic now. I started my own reading series. But the thing that I'm most proud about is becoming a published author. If you had a piece of writing published before, you already know the awesome feeling seeing your words in print for others to read. It's a very rewarding experience. So what I really like about the series of workshops that DSTL Arts is doing is that we're giving everybody in the community the opportunity to become a published writer, because the end result of this series of workshops is we're going to have a public reading and an anthology that's going to be featuring work by the community, you. In 2019, DSTL Arts published my first chapbook, which is a collection of poems mostly about Los Angeles. But for like the last 20 months or so, I've been focusing more on poems that are inspired by music. And so these fall into the category of ekphrastic poetry. If you're not familiar with that term, don't worry, we're gonna get into that today. We're gonna be learning a couple of things today. The first thing that I want to get into is the civil rights movement, which was a period of time in this country when Black Americans and other people of color were struggling to end racial discrimination and gain equal rights under the law. This was a tumultuous time that involved legal battles in courthouses, tense standoffs between racist politicians and the federal government, and lots of direct action and protest. There's a handout with some of the big moments of the civil rights movement, so I won't go over all of them, but I do want to mention a few of them just to add some context to what we're going to be doing today. In May 17th, 1954, there was a legal battle, which is a Brown versus Board of Education. And this was a consolidation of 5 cases into one that ended racial segregation in public schools. Many schools, however, remained segregated. December 1st, 1995, this was a famous moment that happened in Montgomery, Alabama, where Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat, and it started a year-long bus boycott. November 14th, 1960, 6-year-old Ruby Bridges is escorted by 4 armed federal marshals, becoming the first student to integrate William Frantz Elementary School in New Orleans. In 1961, we had the Freedom Riders, which were youth who were going to bus stops and were trying to integrate whites-only restrooms and lunch counters. These protests were met with a lot of violence, which actually drew a lot of national attention to what they were doing. And then 1963 was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This is where Martin Luther King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. The world around us inspires us to react. This is especially true for the artists of that time who were creating works that reflected the struggles of the civil rights movement. These works not only exposed to a nationwide audience the struggles of Black and other people of color, but they also took a stand on behalf of those fighting for justice and equality. To me, these works of art reached a higher level of importance because they tried to create change in society. And there are hundreds of examples of these powerful works of art, but in the interest of time, I'll just share a few of them, which actually you'll see in the screen behind me. So that one right there, that's Jacob Lawrence, a painting called Bar and Grill. That was created in 1941. Jacob Lawrence actually grew up in Harlem. His parents, though, were from the South. And one day he took a trip to New Orleans, and it was the first time that he really experienced segregation. So that painting shows how, you know, the whites only section and blacks only section. And at the time, you know, there were water fountains only for people of color, and you had to come in through the back. It's very subtle, but as you could see right there, there's a separation. That next photograph right there is from Gordon Parks. It's called Department Store. And you see a woman and her child. They're like in their Sunday best dressed. But, you know, what really captures your attention is that big neon sign right above them, which is, you know, colored entrance. And, you know, it speaks to, highlights, actually, the separation, racial discrimination that was going on at the time. Okay, this next piece here is from Andy Warhol, who was a very well-known artist, known for pop art. And that's actually a mixed media art piece. The original photograph was taken by Charles Moore. And so what Andy Warhol did was center it, enlarged it, messed around with it, and what he really wanted to do was expose what was going on. It's actually a very confrontational piece, which is why I included it. Okay, then here we have Norman Rockwell, another very well-known painter. Did a lot of Americana, Daily American Life. He did a lot of covers for the Saturday Evening Post. That particular painting, though, was done for Look magazine. It was a centerfold, and the year prior to that, he had ended his contract with the Saturday Evening Post, mostly because he was frustrated that he wasn't allowed to do more political work exposing what was going on. So here he's painting the scene that I mentioned earlier, 6-year-old Ruby Bridges, where she's being escorted by federal marshals. She's becoming the first student to integrate her elementary school. And last but not least, you will see Elizabeth Catlett's sculpture, which is called Homage to My Young Black Sisters. So when I was doing a lot of this research, some of these artists I didn't know anything about. Elizabeth Catlett I had never heard of before. She has a very awesome backstory. I encourage you guys to check it out. And you know what you can see in the sculpture is, you know, the feminine body, the black power salute, which reflected all the protests that were going on at that time. So we have all kinds of arts, paintings, photography, and mixed media, sculptures. But what about music? Well, today we're actually going to spend time with one of the most popular songs to come out of that era, which is Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. You probably are familiar with this song. If you're not, don't worry about it. We're going to listen to it later on at the end of this when we're doing our class exercise. What I want us to do now, however, is to read the lyrics of this song. This is What's Going On from the 1971 album of the same name. It's sung by Marvin Gaye. Songwriters are Marvin P. Gaye, Ronaldo Obi Benson, Alfred W. Cleveland. Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some lovin' here today. Yeah. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some lovin' here today. Picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Right on, right on, right on. Mother, mother, everybody thinks we're wrong. But who are they to judge us simply 'cause our hair is long? You know we've got to find a way to bring some understanding here today. Picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. Yeah, what's going on. Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Right on, baby, right on. Right on. Right on, baby, right on. What I want everybody to do is think about or look carefully at these lyrics. How are these lyrics still relevant today? What events or circumstances in contemporary history are reflected within this song? And feel free to pause this video and think about that a little bit. Go back and read through the lyrics if you want. I mean, I remember listening to Marvin Gaye in high school, but it was for, his other kind of music, Let's Get It On. That was the song that everybody used to play, I think going into this, what's going on, some people will say would be the obvious choice. And I guess it is, but it's also really the most important song because it was actually important to Marvin Gaye. I was, doing some research into this, and this song was partly inspired by Marvin Gaye's conversations with his brother Frankie, who was a Vietnam vet. And so when he came back from the war, he would tell him stories about what it was like back there and what he was facing when he came back. That's why, at the beginning, you hear all that brother, that's in reference to his brother. And so he was inspired to record this song. He talked to the owner of Motown, Berry Gordy, and Berry Gordy was very against it. He didn't want him to do it. But Marvin Gaye just went ahead and he did it himself. In Motown, when you were working with them, you only used their producers. You pretty much did what they told you. But he went on his own and got his own musicians. He produced it himself. I think, and I don't remember exactly how long. It might have taken him 10 days or something to record it. But he did it all on his own. Berry Gordy still wanted nothing to do with it. And so he told them, well, I'm not going to release any other music until you guys put this out. And so somebody at Motown, without even Berry Gordy knowing, went ahead and released it. And it sold out. They put out some more. And then Berry Gordy was finally okay with it. So after this, though, Marvin Gaye was inspired to write the whole album. This whole album came out from this song. And it was probably the only or first concept album within, the R&B community. I mean, that's why I chose this song. It was just very important to Marvin Gaye. It's become important to me because before that, I used to just know him for his R&B stuff, and this kind of helped him change his political views. And I think after this, he actually put out maybe 2 or 3 other albums that were pretty political. And, he's going to be known forever, not just for his R&B stuff, but his politically charged music as well. So now that we've talked about a couple of things, I wanted to get into ekphrastic poetry, which I mentioned earlier. Ekphrastic poetry, we have a definition here on the handout. Ekphrasis, from the Greek term for a written description of a work of art. An ekphrastic poem is a vivid description of a scene or, more commonly, a work of art. More generally, an ekphrastic poem is a poem inspired or stimulated by a work of art. Through the imaginative act of narrating and reflecting on the action of a painting, sculpture, or other work of art, the poet may amplify and expand its meaning. Basically, If you're walking in a museum and you see a painting, a photograph, if you're walking down the street, you see a mural, if a car comes driving by and you hear a song that catches your attention and you are compelled to write about that, that would fall into ekphrastic poetry. A lot of times us poets will wake up and go outside our home, we'll hear a bird singing or see a flower or see an interaction. That'll inspire us to write a poem. You know, it happens all the time because pretty much everything you see around you can be poetry. Ekphrastic poetry is a little bit different though, because we're still reacting to something, but we're actually choosing what we're going to be reacting to, whether that's, you know, a painting, photo, or a song. During my research, I was lucky enough to find a poet who wrote an entire book of ekphrastic poems inspired by Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album. The poet's name is Timothy D. Jones, and his book is called Where Are We Going? Right now, I want to go over the first poem in his book. The poem is titled What's Going On, which is also the title track of Marvin Gaye's iconic album. And all the poems in this book are rather long, so I'm not going to read the entire poem. What you have on your handouts are a couple of excerpts, just really quick. Jones is an American microblogger, education consultant, and minister. So this is an excerpt from What's Going On. The inquiry of fan-in-your-face mystery has been asked in song for half a century. Is the question based on an observation upon arrival, or a question in the hopes of figuring out a plan for survival? Is the question an ignition for change, or an attempt to see if what you're seeing is strange? Do I see more of the wreckage left behind, or the promises that lie ahead? Are the promises the results of change, or the guarantee of things remaining the same? Tired of being beaten for wanting a life consisting of more than breathing, looking for an equal shot at achieving instead of an unequal shot at being shot. On one time I heard the party in the introduction, and I closed my eyes to imagine it was a Friday or Saturday night. The slapping of hands in unison with the chant of "What's happening?" Survived a long week of work or frustration, of pounding pavement in search of an occupation. Watching the news to see if what happened on your street was deemed worthy of mentioning to the community at large. Having to be your own reporter to let your friends know what's going on. Turn the music up, because downstairs those brothers and sisters are talking about revolution again. I want to leave trouble behind and enjoy the night with friends. Hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you before. What's your name? By the look on your face, you can't hear what I'm saying over the music that is playing. Maybe I will use the groove as my choreographer of my next move. So this poem exemplifies ekphrasis because what it's really doing is it's reacting to the song, to the lyrics especially. There's a section towards the end that's very focused on the intro of the song, What's Going On. The song What's Going On has a very unique intro where you kind of hear a party. You know, there's a party going on in the background. Everybody's talking about what's happening and, you know, what's going on. And so the poet is elaborating on that scene, kind of making up his own world and making it relatable to him. You know, he's also talking about what's going on according to him. He talks about, you know, being a reporter about what's going on. With that in mind, using both the poem and the song called What's Going On, We want you to write an ekphrastic poem that describes and answers the question, what's going on. You're definitely going to want to listen to the song as you write this. If you have a Spotify account, find the song. You can easily also find it on YouTube, which is where I've been listening to it. If you have it on vinyl, go ahead and put it on the record player. I think what's important to note, though, is that the poet is not doing an analysis of the song, of the lyrics. He's just reacting to it. He's giving his feelings about what he's listening to, about what's being said. That's what he's reacting to, and that's what we want you to do. So, write.
Hey, what's up now? Brother, what's up? This is a groovy party, man. Yeah, I can dig it. Right on.